All right, let's talk a little bit about the attempted assassinations of U.S. presidents. I'm not going to go over too much about Trump. Obviously, that's been covered a lot, and now it's been eclipsed by some other news about Biden stepping down and the cackler being put up there, whatever. The attempted assassination of U.S. presidents, there have been quite a few, actually. In recent memory, obviously, Trump, and before him, Reagan, and Ford, believe it or not. There were actually two attempts against President Ford in 1975 that were only 17 days apart. Also, they were both perpetrated by females. The only president ever to have had assassination attempts by females, two of them went after him. So that was kind of unique. But he survived both of them, wasn't hit in either case. The second attempt was thwarted by a guy named Oliver Sipple, who was a former Marine living out in California. And he was living out there in California in 1975. The news focused on him. They dug a little bit deeper, and oh, what do you know? He's gay. And of course, this is California. Of course, there were places like the Tenderloin and Castro in San Francisco and gay rights parades. And it was not unusual, but it was nothing like it is today, where it's gay everywhere. Back then, it was just sort of sequestered, and there were neighborhoods, and he was in that community. He never really made a local secret out of it. He participated in pride parades and events, and he was on the scene, I guess. But back then, nobody really expected anytime you did something that it would be memorialized forever on the internet. So the newspaper published the details of it, the bigger newspapers, and he sued them. He lost the lawsuit. The court's reasoning more or less said it was a matter of public concern. Tough cookies. So let's go over the assassinations before that. The first one, just as a note, Squeaky Fromm, you might have heard that name. She was one of Charles Manson's starlets who tried to kill the president, Ford, first, and she wasn't very successful because the gun that she got from her older sugar daddy boyfriend, this 45 here, she didn't stick around long enough to learn how to use it before she stole it from the guy. And when she went to shoot at the president, she didn't have a round chambered. So that ended quickly. The second assassination attempt, 17 days later, it was in San Francisco. First one was Sacramento. Second one, San Francisco. Squeaky Fromm is still alive, by the way. She's 75 years old. And so is the second person who tried to assassinate the president, Sarah Jane Moore. She is about 90-something years old now. They've both been paroled. They're both out of jail, living their lives, of course. Life doesn't really mean life, especially not back in the 70s. Anyway, she got off a shot at the president with a 38 special revolver. And at that point, the Secret Service reacted, but so did Oliver Sipple, who was standing nearby. He tackled her and possibly prevented the second shot from hitting the president. The Secret Service was already in motion, and the bullet hit the wall and injured a Secret Service member, not too seriously. He recovered and carried on his details. You can see right here, this is after the first shot. Nobody's really reacting yet, but I don't have a video of it, but they did react quickly enough. It was nothing like the attempt that went on the other day. I actually saw the attempt against Reagan when I was younger. I'm old enough to remember it, and I didn't see it live, but I saw it in the news, and everybody's walking along, and then all of a sudden there's a couple of shots that ring out. There's bodies piled up on the sidewalk. There's some angry guy with a Uzi standing around, and before I could even determine what color car the president was riding in, it was gone, out of there that fast. Things were just, boom, that quick. And that's not what we witnessed on the Trump attempt at all. I don't think there was a conspiracy. I don't think it was deliberate that this happened and they certainly didn't plan that shot, but you had a lot of agencies that just did not coordinate properly, advanced work that was not done completely, and on the scene, anybody could see that it just didn't look like anybody was really in charge there. It was just the Keystone Cops. But anyway, Sipple did what he did. They wanted to write about it, and they found out that he was gay, and they said, oh, well, that's a matter we can talk about. Oliver Sipple, former Marine. Now, as I mentioned, he'd already been to gay pride parades, gay rights demonstrations. He was active in local causes. He had been written about in some smaller local newspapers, I guess, in the gay community, but not in something bigger like the San Francisco Chronicle and the LA Times. So people think he kind of got punished for what he did. And I guess by the standards of the day, you would say that he did, because nobody really expected, when you did something local that it would necessarily blow up beyond the local area, whatever he's participating in, political or something else. So he sued, and it was struck down by the Court, and it did not go to the Supreme Court. It went to the Court of Appeals in California, and there was a summary judgment given before that basically threw the case out. It's a summary judgment, and they found in favor of the newspapers. He appealed. Court of California upheld that summary judgment, and the basis, as I mentioned before, was a matter of public concern, but also newsworthy. Now that's the interesting part here. It pops up here and there. And number one, the published facts weren't private, as I mentioned earlier. Number two, publication was newsworthy. But even aside from the aforegoing considerations, the summary judgment dismissing the action against respondents was justified on the additional independent basis that the publication contained in the articles in dispute was newsworthy. Now, what's newsworthy? Okay. Supreme Court stated that a truthful publication, you can't publish lies, but a truthful publication is protected if it is newsworthy and it does not reveal facts so offensive as to shock the community notions of decency. Maybe back in 1975, we had things like community notions of decency, but now we have 11-year-olds showing up on Good Morning America dressed as drag queens, and we have drag queen story hours, and we have trans this and gay that, and it just goes on and on and on. So whatever this bar is for newsworthy, it doesn't really describe it, but the not revealing facts so offensive as to shock the community notions of decency, I'm struggling to find an example of what that would be these days. And the broader point I'm trying to make is don't expect, if there's anything that's not truthful, they can write about it. Hell, they can dox you and get away with it. No matter what your movement is, and back then, they were probably, the journalists, sympathetic to someone like Sipple. Sipple was gay, and there were probably gays working in the newsroom, and they understood, and they didn't really want to crucify the guy necessarily, but there was a broader point to make. We gotta get this out there. We gotta show that heroes can be gay too. Yeah. So he was crushed under the wheels of their agenda. And people who are part of the movements these days are going to be just as easily crushed whenever it's convenient. So right now they're allowed to do their thing and whatever else, but never cheer on hard power that you don't control that can be used against you. Hard power being cops beating up with sticks, whatever. They go after your enemies. You think that's terrific. And softer power, like legal power, lawfare, being used against people you don't like. Well, lawfare was used against Oliver Sipple, and he struggled with alcoholism the rest of his life. He really didn't want his mom to find out how he was living his life, and his secret probably would have been safe. But he had an outdated notion of privacy, apparently, even for 1975. And the system flat out just didn't care. Their broader political agenda was more important to get this out there and have their first gay heroes. And now we see, look, everybody who's anything is a hero these days. Anyway, if you want to read more about presidential assassination attempts, there's a huge list of them here on Wikipedia. A couple of them I didn't know about. A couple interesting ones. They got Donald Trump in there already. Herbert Hoover, FDR, Truman. During the Jewish insurgency in Palestine before the formation of the State of Israel, a Zionist paramilitary organization, Lehi, was alleged to have sent a number of letter bombs to high-ranking staff in the White House. Things they don't teach you in high school history. Anyway, just wanted to bring that out there and show how this is, I guess, what's old is new again, and the more things change, the more they stay the same. Hope you found this helpful. Thanks.